All right, thanks, Scott. It's been 50 years since Buzz Aldrin walked on the moon. Wednesday night, he walked into the U.S. Space and Rocket Center to applause and cheers, a celebration of Apollo 11, the first manned mission to land on the moon. The famous astronaut got an award for his work in space exploration. The audience, politicians, scientists were there to trade ideas and inspiration and listen to Buzz Aldrin talk about his life and his mission to the moon all those years ago. He says one of his favorite moments in the afterglow of Apollo 11 was the way people all over the world came together to celebrate the historic accomplishment. As the world pauses this week to remember man's first steps on the moon, one woman has a unique perspective on that life-changing event. Dr. Ellen Ochoa made history herself as the first female Hispanic astronaut. She recently retired as the director of the Johnson Space Center in Houston, where she continued to push for the United States to return to the moon. Our Michelle Edmonds sat down for an exclusive interview with Dr. Ochoa, who has now made Boise her home.
In the summer of 1969, I was living in Southern California, so it was a suburb of San Diego called La Mesa, with my 4 brothers and sisters and my parents. We were in the living room, watching, of course, what was going on, and just like pretty much everybody else in the country, we were following along, and it was, just sort of incredible, like hard to believe. Like, are they actually on the moon? But I will have to say at that time, I never had any thought or any idea that that was something that I could do. Partly, there were no women astronauts, and you really, although there were women at NASA, there weren't very many. And so you generally just didn't see them. If you saw people from NASA on TV, you really just didn't see women.
At some point, though, you either had to hear NASA calling you or, yeah. Earth to Ellen, what was the spark that made you think about, and not only NASA, but did you immediately think, I'm going to be an astronaut?
Well, it was when I was at Stanford, and the shuttle program flew for the first time near the end of my first year at Stanford, so everybody was watching it. It was a new program. America hadn't flown in space in several years, when that first mission went off, so there was a lot of attention to it. But also the fact that a few years before that, the first women had been selected as astronauts in 1978.
Was it an easy path for you to join NASA?
Well, literally, when I put in my application, I just thought I would never hear from NASA again. It's kind of amazing when I think back to when I was 11, and these were the people who were, walking on the moon. I never could have in a million years have thought that I would be an astronaut or that I would meet in person any of those people. And I will tell you, even within the astronaut office, they hold a special place and a special role, and any astronaut is excited to meet Apollo astronauts because it was such a huge part of the history of our country. Certainly one of the things that was a highlight of the time during the time I was director was the first test flight of the Orion spacecraft. So that's the one that's going to take astronauts back to the moon, first to the lunar vicinity, and then there'll be a vehicle that will take them down onto the lunar surface. And that test flight that we did, which was in December of 2014, was really important to show, okay, we're making progress, on this mission, so that was an exciting moment.
Why is that mission important? For people who might say, we've been there, we've done that, why do we need to go back?
Well, so I think it's part about not just being there, but understanding what you can learn and to understand how you can stay in a much more sustained environment. So there's a lot of reasons the moon is interesting to us. Some of it is scientifically, and some of it is understanding, well, what would it take maybe to develop a base on the moon, which we can use to either study Earth or to understand what sort of resources you can get from the moon to actually launch missions towards Mars. I think one of the things we really focus on at NASA is learning lessons from everything that we do, and then we try to carry those forward. Because it's a difficult business, it's a dangerous business, and you want to make sure that you're continuously learning, and that's something that we emphasize today, and certainly as director of Johnson Space Center, that was a big part of it, is lessons learned from all the way back in the 60s through what we're learning today and how that can make us more successful in the future.
Our own Michelle Edmonds reporting Dr. Ochoa hopes her story inspires students, specifically young girls, to pursue their dreams. Coming up Sunday night at 10 o'clock, Michelle continues her conversation with the former astronaut who talks about the misconceptions of STEM-based learning.